Ready, Roxanne?
We're rolling
Yeah, you
now.
are. Okay, so this is Councilor Bill Psalms. I'm calling this regular meeting of the Ledyard Town Council Finance Committee to order. And present are myself, Councilor Ingalls, Councilor Malone, both members of the committee, as well as Councilor McGrattan, Mayor Allen, Roxanne Marr, Finance Director Hancock, Board of Ed members Mike Bronner and Whit Irwin, and Emergency Medical Services Director Steve Holyfield, and Superintendent Jay Hartling. I think that's everyone. So welcome everyone. I have no, I should ask if there are any citizens' comments. And hearing none, I have no informational items, and I would entertain a motion to approve both the special joint finance meeting of 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry, January 19th, and the regular meeting minute of January, whatever it was, 20th.
20th. Are you sure you're not on that?
Positive. All the
This is Councilor Malone. I make a motion to approve the following special joint meeting minutes of January 19, 2021, regular meeting minutes of January 20, 2021 of the Finance Committee and the Finance Committee special joint meeting with Town Council and Board of Education.
Councilor Ingalls seconds.
Much more eloquent. Thank you, Councilor. Okay, so any comments, corrections? They were long minutes and a lot of discussion and a lot of work to put them together. So comments and corrections?
No, I have none. I did read them.
None.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Councilor Ingalls votes aye.
Councilor Malone votes aye.
As does Councilor Psalms. Thank you very much. The motion passes. Marcia, all yours. Finance Director's report. You're mute, Marcia.
All right. This darn thing.
There you are. We can see you now. Perfect. Right there.
She's muted again.
Yeah.
She's talking. Okay, now I'm done. We're working on the budget. That's all I have to say after all that.
Well, I have a comment. The day reported that a number of towns have delayed their audits, and they listed all the area and local towns that delayed their audits as a result of the pandemic. And Ledyard was not on that list. So thank you very much, Marcia. Good work.
Or in one case where the auditor fired the town.
Yeah.
That's the article I'm talking about. That was.
I have to say,
wow.
A lot of that I think is, well, the push that this town has made towards technology is has a lot to do with that, because it sounds to me like those other towns have had a real problem with getting items back and forth from people who are working from home. For one thing, we didn't really have anybody working from home during the audit field work, but we did have auditors who didn't come to the town because of COVID. So all of our items were uploaded to their website or sent by email. And I think we kind of take for granted now how well our VPN works and how we can get into all of our folders that we have here in the town. But apparently other towns are not quite up to our snuff. So yay, Ledyard.
We are fortunate. Okay, thank you very much. We have no old business. Does anyone want to amend the agenda for new business? Hearing and seeing none, I would entertain the first motion.
I move to transfer $159,728 from account 101-882-10-59300 transferred funds to account number 210-70101-58261 BOE CNR Ag-Sci upon receipt of the final fiscal year 2021 Ag-Science grant disbursement. In addition, authorize the Board of Education to spend up to $57,000 of the aforementioned funds for a standing seam, roof, barn, and air conditioning system as detailed below upon receipt of the final fiscal year 21 grant disbursement.
Council Malone seconds.
There a second. Thank you, Tom. The town of Ledyard and the schools participate and operate a VOAG program. This barn was purchased 12 years ago, needs a new roof. It was purchased used, which is why it needs a new roof. That was my first question. And secondly, the VOAG department was built with the infrastructure for air conditioning, but it does not have it. So this is money that is an overage that we weren't expecting. I do have some questions about it, but I would like to turn it over to the superintendent and the chair of Board of Ed Finance if they would like to make any comments and presentation first.
This is Mr. Harling, superintendent. No, I think you have the summary in front of you. I don't want to belabor it. We, again, always appreciate the support of the town when we get into this circumstance, but I'd also say a thanks to the team in our agricultural science program for, really looking at this as one-time capital improvements rather than thinking about reoccurring expenses, because we can't guarantee that these funds will always exist. So I think these are strong investments and only benefit the children that attend our program. So we appreciate the support.
Agreed. Councilor Malone, Councilor Ingalls, questions, comments?
I don't have any questions.
I don't think I have any yet, but maybe you will provoke some, Bill.
Yeah, I do. I really like the idea of investing this extra money in capital, because if we put it in a program, that implies or risks that we'll have to spend it year after year. So I really like this approach. My question is this. We've worked with the Board of Ed over the past few years to improve the capital improvement program, and specifically the capital improvement plan. And so I went back to the budget and I looked to see if these two items were in the capital program, and they're not. So my request, well, first I should ask why not, but I think probably we probably know the answer, so I'll wait for that. But I would like to see us do a better job and start thinking down the road and identifying, even if it's not going to be funded, put the request in so that we know what we're going to be spending money on. It makes this decision much easier, because we look at the SIP, we say, hey, we've been planning to do this for several years. We know we need to do it. We have the money. It's easy to justify. Both good ideas, but I think we could, as I say, do a better job putting items like this in the budget down the road. Secondly, and eventually I'll stop asking questions, so this is the last one, I think. Is there a way for us to set up capital funds from ASCI grants and invest them or set them aside in the sinking fund for capital improvement? Because let's say we want to do a roof. We know we need roofs on some of our buildings. We know that we're going to have to bond that money, or we think we do. We don't have anything set aside. Is there any mechanism that the state would allow that would permit us to set money aside in the capital account from grants like this for future use for assets that are used by VOAG? So I use the example of a roof. The VOAG roof is all that we would want to use this funding for. We couldn't do the whole roof, but is there some way we could do that? So I'll stop there.
Mr. Harling, Superintendent of Schools. Councilman Soms, you bring up two awesome points. I would say that we have had ongoing internal discussions about increasing the number of pieces inside the long-term capital plan. I think there was a move several years ago to cut that back a little bit, and we attacked a lot of that through operations. So that's something we can definitely improve on. You are absolutely correct when you say neither of those items were on the list. And I would say that the capital discussion with the team of Ag-Sci teachers and Mr. Donaldson, who's been in the role now almost 2 years, that's what generated these capital requests specific to agricultural science. So that would be my first answer is you're absolutely right. We can do a better job of that. And it's something that will be on our action list this year to continue to add to those capital needs lists. I think quite frankly, we have been a little bit preoccupied with building project pieces and some other big elements to really give Wayne the time to dig into some of the longer pieces. So I appreciate that feedback, and that is something that's on our radar. The second piece, the setting up capital funds, I think that, you know, kudos to Marcia for setting up that separate CNR account. And so we used to fund this a little differently. And I think it was last year, Marcia set this up as a separate CNR line. And so that's, I think, the approach we take with the excess funds. So you'll notice we only put a request in for a small portion of that excess grant. And so when we do our final end of the year report to the state, I will indicate that those funds are sitting in CNR for future agricultural science needs. And the reality is we're probably on year 21 for that roof. And so it will be coming down the pike at some point. I mean, it's not on the immediate radar. I think it's probably another 10-year out. So I really think that's a great idea. And we're going to start doing that this year because as of right now, I don't have additional capital requests that I'll be putting through for the program. So we'll start with a kitty this year and start moving that fund forward so that we can start addressing those things. We do have flooring issues. There's a lot of things that could potentially come down the pike that will find their way into the capital plan that we can fund through that mechanism. So I appreciate that. That's actually a really good segue, and Marcia laid the groundwork for it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you both. Okay,
Counselor Sons, I do have a question. So the funding is projected funding. Are we essentially spending money we don't have in pocket yet? And has it happened that the funding is projected and then not realized?
No, I mean, we've gone through this for multiple years now. With the exception of the period of rescission, even then they didn't cut the agricultural science grants. They pay it out over four payments. 3 of those payments are now booked. I know there was some question about those. That has since been resolved with the treasurer. So we've received 3, and we'll get our 4th payment. Marcia, is that April that we get the 4th payment or May?
I believe it's the end of April.
Right. And so as I did last year, I would urge the council not to hold these funds until the payment in May, mainly because it becomes very difficult for us to put out bids and get the work done all during the summer surge. I would say that it would be 99.9% certain that all those funds will be received. There is 0 chance based on the current funding climate that we will not receive the agricultural science funds allotted to us. They have awarded it the last 3 years, like clockwork. And so, you know, waiting until May actually just puts us at a disadvantage for bidding out and getting the work move forward. So I strongly urge the council to move forward now, or allow us to move forward now so we can take advantage of this bidding season and potentially even start work maybe during April break, which would get us I think a better bid package or better rates, because quite frankly, everybody's trying to do this work in the summer in municipalities. And if we could get it during April break or look at different timeframes, I think it would be hugely beneficial to them.
Thank you.
Would it be possible to start the bid process with a caveat in the bid that, you know, pending receipt of payments? I know that might disinterest some bidders, but
I think that's a possibility. I guess the leverage would be as soon as we have approval to spend those funds, we would go out to bid, and then we would look for, you know, we could potentially look for advantageous periods to do that work. Right now, like for example, HVAC work in the state of Connecticut, there is a ton of municipal work out there, and a lot of it is scheduled for June. And so getting a vendor in is going to be a little tough. The standing seam roof obviously is a little different. But again, the likelihood of those funds not coming in is virtually zero, and has been zero. And so again, I don't have the benefit of Marcia's look or the treasurer's look on cash flow. But you know, to think that we're not going to receive the remaining payment, I think is just not recognizing the reality we've faced over the last few years, and the fact that the state has received almost $700 million in educational funding. So for them to remove that grant would be super unlikely.
okay.
I can't emphasize
I
that
think
enough.
If it were a larger dollar amount, you know, if it were the track, something of that magnitude, I'd be a lot more nervous. But really good question, Counselor. Other questions? You guys ready to vote? All in favor, please say, oh, Marcia.
I would just say if you're going to approve the funding for now, you would need to change the motion a bit, I think, because there's a upon final funding phrase in there, whatever that phrase is.
Yeah, I'm not proposing that. I think that it would probably cause some contractors to choose not to bid. And I think the superintendent makes really good points about the work, at least the air conditioning work that starts in June. If we can get in there in April, that would be great.
But what I'm saying is, I think the motion right now says upon funding
I see.
in April.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Okay, so it does.
And it's a fraction of it. So we're talking about the not to exceed
57,000, I think.
Yeah.
And if the funding doesn't come in, Jay will just pay it out of his BOE reserve, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable with whatever mechanism allows us to move forward with the bid process and get this work booked. Because if we wait, there's no guarantee we'll get bids. And what we saw with asbestos a few years ago, we wait too long, the bidders will put together packages that are like, hey, if we get it, we'll do it, but we don't really want the work. And I think we need to be smart about the bid process. So you could potentially modify the motion to approve a transfer of only 50 at this point, and the remaining amount upon receipt of the full disbursement in May, which would allow us to move forward. Cover it all in one and allow us to move forward. And you could even put it in there if necessary, the BOE reserve would fund it.
Okay.
You know, I think Mr. Bronner is on. I mean, that seems to be, it's all money for kids. So I'm pretty flexible.
So 50, are you thinking 50%, Jay?
No, I'm sorry. The amount of those two requests totaled 51, was it? I don't have the number in front of me.
57.
Okay, so maybe you could potentially amend the motion to say to transfer 57,000 into the account now, and the remaining amount when the final disbursement is received in May. And if there is an issue with the funding, the remaining balance could be, paid from the
I see.
but that's not
part of it. Yeah. Okay.
I like it.
Roxanne.
Marcia, can you help us with some wording there?
Well, the money's going to have to come from somewhere, which I think is why Roxanne has her hand raised. The 57,000, if you're going to approve it before the money is actually here, we need to appropriate it from somewhere. So
Okay.
Undesignated, I guess, or let me pull up the actual.
Or you could do the 57 out of the BOE CNR, and then do we can do a transfer in May when the rest of the money, when the full amount comes in, to balance those two accounts. That probably be the easiest, is funded out of the BOE CNR, and then when the 150 or when the 159 is fully realized, you transfer you balance those two accounts out at the end, which would make it very clean, and there would be no concern about the funds being available currently.
Okay, so I'm looking up the account number for you, Bill.
Yep.
Okay.
Ready.
So approved transfer of $57,000 from account 21070101 58250, which is the Board of Ed Reserve account. To account 21070101 58261, which is the Ag-Science account, for the purpose of what's already in the motion.
Yep. Okay. So I will restate the motion and ask if Councilor Ingalls would accept that as a friendly amendment. So the motion would now read to transfer $159,728 from account 2107-0101-58250 Board of Ed Reserve to account 2107-0101-58261.
So,
yeah, Roxanne. Yeah.
I got a little confused. This motion is actually in two portions. The first one is to transfer the $159,728 upon the receipt of the Ag-Science grant disbursement. Then there's a second part that says, in addition, authorize the Board of Education to spend up to $57,000. So it's the second portion of the motion that you actually want to change. So that should say, in addition, authorize the Board of Education to transfer and spend up to $57,000 from the account Marcia just gave you, which was 2107.
Yeah. Yep.
And then just take out the last sentence of the second portion that says, upon the receipt of final payment disbursement. So that's what you want to say. But you're only changing the part that starts with in addition. The first part you're going to leave the way it is.
All right. So, Marcia, I'm a little confused now because we were transferring from the transferred funds account. Now we're transferring from the Board of Ed Reserve account. So are we transferring 57,000 or 159,000?
57,000.
Okay. So we're not going to do anything now with the remaining funds?
Right. It sounds like Jay is saying that will stay in their Ag-Science line.
Yeah.
Over the end of the fiscal year.
All right. Okay. So let me try this again. I move to, or the motion would say, it's already been moved, to transfer $57,000 from account 2107-0101-58250 Board of Ed Reserve to account 2107-0101-58261 Board of Ed CNR Ag-Sci, and in addition, authorize the Board of Ed to spend up to $57,000 of the aforementioned funds for standing seam roof barn and the air conditioning system as detailed below upon receipt of the
No,
period.
as contained in their letter dated January 11th, 2021, and then take the upon receipt out.
Correct.
Okay. Friendly amendment?
I accept the friendly amendment, but Roxanne, to cite that letter, the letter describes this procedure as it is in the first motion.
Well, I just meant as far as the project. So as
Okay.
the
Okay.
the barn and the air conditioning is listed in the letter.
Okay.
Yep. That makes sense. Okay. Everybody's good? All in favor, say aye.
Councilor Ingalls votes aye.
Councilor Malone votes aye.
And Councilor Psalms votes aye. Thank you very much. The motion passes. And let's have the second motion.
I make a motion to authorize the mayor to submit a grant application to the Federal FY2020 Assistance to Firefighters grant program for the purpose of obtaining portable radio equipment in the amount of $559,407. In addition, transfer $27,970.35 from account number 211-20901-59300 ambulance fund transfers out to account number 210-1402-47009 CNR miscellaneous revenue and appropriate $27,970.35, 5% local match to account 210-20401-57300 AES new equipment.
Councilor Ingalls seconds.
Thank you both. So we have been upgrading our radio systems for the past few years using federal funds. This is an excellent deal. I'm hoping we could have an explanation because I do not remember everything that we've acquired versus everything we still have to acquire. So Steve Holyfield is with us tonight, and I'm hoping he can fill us in on that. But again, these are better radio systems. They allow us to interconnect with other departments, with the state police radio system. So a good deal, just need to understand where we are in the process of replacing all of our radios. So for that, I'll turn it over to you, Steve.
So these particular radios that we're talking about are strictly portable radios for the firefighters to use. We currently use a variety of different Kenwood radios. They're single band. They operate on the radios that we can talk to the dispatch center with, but they cannot communicate with our neighboring mutual aid partners. Part of the thing that we like about these radios, and these are Motorola's, they're tri-band, which means that we have a variety of different bands that we can communicate with Groton and Montville, and if the police department goes with the digital radios at some point, the state system will be able to plug those frequencies in on these radios too. So we kind of spec these radios out, and this is the same thing that we had asked for last year. We actually got fairly far in the process last year before the federal government ran out of money. And then, basically purged all the rest of the grant requests right at the advent of COVID. So this has, just to kind of clarify on where we're at, we had done some different upgrades to some of the base radio stations, and that was back when Russ was AES. We'd done a couple new towers, and we've improved our coverage. And now what we want to do is get some upgraded equipment. And, to be honest with you, like you said, this is an amazing, the 5% match, because we're under 20,000 people, is an absolute deal. It's for more rural communities such as ours, whereas the cities won't get as much because they've got a lot more industry and commercial and different structures of their tax revenue. This program really is meant for, for us to do things like this. So within this, it's currently 62 portable radios is what we have spec'd out. That'll give us one per riding position on the apparatus and one for each officer. It includes things like spare batteries, our speaker microphones that we wear so we can talk, on the lapel microphone and not have to pick the radio up for the firefighters, and multiple chargers for our vehicles and the firehouses, because we do like to have the portables on the apparatus and charged to maximize our safety for the firefighters. Like I said, they're tri-band. There's a few other things that we've spec'd out in terms of radio cases and straps and stuff that the firefighters use. And we rolled it into one package deal, which is what that 559,407 was. And again, like I said, it's a 5% match. Certainly a good deal for all parties involved.
Thank you, Mr. Holyfield. Now I understand what the disconnect was. I remembered all of this, except that I didn't realize we didn't get it the last time around. So it all sounds so familiar.
We got really close. I've actually attended the last couple of weeks. I've attended a couple grant workshops through FEMA. I've gotten a couple ideas on how to improve our application to make us a little bit more competitive. Definitely, I kind of walked into this and had to submit this right as I started in this position last year. So, I thought we gave it a good effort, and now I'm realizing that there's a few ways that we can improve and get through their, they basically go through and computer check everything and award points on their first cursory scan. And then the applications that are retained go to peers, and they have basically like a gymnasium with a bunch of grant readers to score them. So I think we can get our foot in the door a little bit higher than we did last year, and then maybe have a little bit more success in getting an earlier round moving forward.
Perseverance pays.
Yeah, we're not going to give up on this one.
Yeah, good. Counselors, questions?
Yeah, so Steve, first of all, thank you for informing us that we're not crazy, because I'm reading this and I'm like, didn't we already do this?
Well, we approved trying for this, but we were unsuccessful, unfortunately.
Okay, so that's so I'm glad we're trying again. Remind me, what was the match last year?
5% also.
Okay, so it's essentially the same deal, same package.
Yeah, and the prices are within a couple $1,000s. It may actually come in a little bit lower. As I've been doing some of these grant writing workshops, they really focus on the term that the government uses as riding positions on the apparatus. And so basically, and we saw this with our air pack, and that was the other thing I was going to mention. We got these air packs and were successful in that grant. And it saved us $300,000 or $400,000 in air packs a few years ago, which was great. And it really goes per seat on the apparatus. So I think the dollar amount may actually be lower. I think we may only qualify for less than 62, but I'm going off of, for the purposes of, the grant approval process through you guys, what we submitted last year. And as I finish these things up and get ready to submit them over the next 2 weeks, because it's due next Friday, I'm hoping to maybe trim it back a little bit. And, obviously everything's commensurate with what we actually ask for. So, if we cut back a few because of riding positions, then the match is going to be a little bit less, but it's still going to be that 5% ratio.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Malone? Questions?
No questions.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Councilor Ingalls votes aye.
Councilor Malone votes aye.
Councilor Solomon votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Holyfield. Next item.
Make a motion to authorize the mayor to submit a grant application to the Federal FY2020 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program for the purpose of a breathing air compressor system in the amount of $75,084.55. In addition, authorize payment of $3,754.23, 5% local match from account 210-20501-57300 CNR LFD new equipment.
Councilor Ingalls seconds.
Thank you. So this is for, because we're trying to get rid of, or planning to get rid of R17, which has a portable compressor on it for the air packs. This is to put a system that can be installed in the firehouse. So before I misspeak anymore, I will turn it again over to Mr. Holyfield.
So just a point of clarification, R17, Ledyard's Rescue, actually, it's interesting because it doesn't have a compressor on it. It doesn't have anything to generate its own air pressure. So the current practice is it currently has a cascade, which is basically a couple of air cylinders. And those air cylinders are filled through an air compressor, and that air compressor is located down at Gales Ferry. So anytime Ledyard's running low on air, they have to take their apparatus across town, hook it up to Gales Ferry's compressor, recharge their system, and then drive it back up and continue to do what they were doing. I've been having some meetings with Chief Mann. We've been discussing apparatus. You know, we've had some changes that you guys are aware of in terms of, for instance, R11 is currently out getting its new motor put in it. The motor is out of it. We're waiting on the new one to get installed, so we're making great progress there. We had that spare Green Goblin that we've talked about a few times in committee. And we've really been trying to take an approach on the apparatus plan, like a strategic long-term approach here. And we had some really good conversations and some frank conversations about the status of the rescue. And I think that one of the ways that we can probably save some costs in the long run is to submit for a grant and to allow them to fill their air cylinders right at their own firehouse. It'll be an apparatus similar, and I say apparatus meaning not something with wheels, but a piece of equipment similar to what Gales Ferry has with the compressor and the air fill station there. And they'll be able to do it right at their own firehouse instead of having something going over the road. It saves a lot of compartment space in terms of whatever we might put on the next apparatus that takes the rescue's place or incorporates the rescue's role into town as far as carrying equipment. And that certainly storage space is an issue for any of our fire trucks, but it also keeps this thing from going down the road and having issues with, you know, maintenance and repairs and needing to have the DOT hydro testing. You know, the fixed facility stuff has some different standards. And at any rate, again, the 5% match, I thought this was a pretty good deal. And it was something I kind of pushed the chief to, you know, kind of give me the reins to go ahead and pursue this. So unlike the previous grant, this is going to be not a regional grant, meaning we're not going to have multiple departments. This is for Ledyard only. And it's to essentially take an air compressor and some air cylinders and install them at the Ledyard firehouse so that they can refill their own breathing air cylinders right at the firehouse.
And I gather it's not your standard Home Depot air compressor.
No, the compressor itself, right? They cost $50,000 to $60,000. They go up to 6,000 psi, which is a lot more than you're going to have on your home air compressor. The nice thing about these is because they do go up to 6,000 psi. If there's ever an upgrade in our air cylinders and our air packs down the road, once we hopefully get another grant in another 12 years or so to replace our existing ones, you know, the new technology is 5,500 psi. This will definitely accommodate that. So again, we're trying to plan into the future and purchase things that are not by any means extravagant, but they're definitely within some forethought to where we're going to be in 15 years and try to spread that cost out through either the SIP or through grants. And again, like I said, I think it was $3,500 or so. That's a really decent price compared to, you know, $70,000.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Because we're planning to transfer the money from the ambulance fund, I asked Director Hancock what our balance is and what our remaining obligations are on the emergency services building. This is one of my pet things. And she came back with some numbers. We presently have almost just $50 short of $500,000 in the fund. We have 4 years to go on the emergency services building. So that will leave a balance of just under $100,000. Have I said that correctly, Marcia? Marcia, you're muted. I think.
Yes, that is correct, Bill.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to make sure that we don't whittle away at the ambulance fund and end up with no money and still owe for an emergency services building. So. And
I think the motion actually reflected that the air compressor was going to come out of the Ledyard Fire CNR exclusively.
It's the radios that are coming out of.
Yeah.
Oh, the radios. Okay.
The radios were going to come out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And my suggestion on that was strictly, you know, if we're going to get a grant for $500,000, I think that's a good place to not necessarily tax the fire company's CNR budgets on both ends of town. Granted, we probably could absorb we probably could rearrange things and reprioritize things for that. But, you know, there's a certain small segment of that LV's money that came in that would be nice to kick back to public safety. And when we're getting something at such a good rate with that 5% match, I thought that was definitely a good suggestion to at least talk about and recommend.
Yep, absolutely. Agreed. Councilors, questions?
I have a question. So just to clarify, and I guess this is for Marcia really. So the back to the radios, the motion is almost 28,000 for that 5%. There's almost 500K in the LV's fund, but once we pay off the emergency services building, that will be just under 100,000. That's right. But we are transferring out almost 28. So once that transfer is done, we'll be looking at about 72K balance. Okay, just want to be clear.
Yep. Yeah, so we're going to have to be really tight over the next 3 years.
Okay.
Until it's down to nothing.
With that fund, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you guys ready to vote?
I got a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Tom.
So Steve, what's the product name on these compressors? Are they Bauer or are they somebody else?
I knew you were going to ask, and I have that info in front of me. So we have 2 quotes so far that Zach Willis has gone out and gotten. One was from Shipmans for a Bauer Unicus 4-horsepower compressor. And the other one was from Firematic, who's a vendor that we use up in Rocky Hill. And that was for an Eagle air compressor. It's called a Baron. My understanding is that Zach Willis from Legend Fire has one other quote that he's looking for from a vendor. They're taking a little bit longer getting there. My understanding is that these are 2 of the more well-known and you know, kind of like a Ford and Chevy sort of arrangement in terms of the air compressors for these types of applications. We also included a little bit of installation in there. So in other words, the quote from Shipmans was right around 70,000, and we're trying to get some hard numbers back from an electrician, but it's been a little bit delayed lately for the install. But I earmarked about $5,000 to run the necessary electrical connections and hookups up at Ledger Fire. You know, it's definitely something that we have to take care of, and I think it's substantially easier to roll that into the costs of installation through the grant and get, you know, hopefully the government to fund 95% of that install, and we'll cover the other 5.
So Steve, just to be clear, the installation would cover any dehydrators, air purifiers, any ancillary equipment outside of the actual compressor that you would use to purify the air for the SCBA tanks, correct?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay.
And you know, the only thing that this grant is not going to cover is the ongoing stuff that Chief Mann would have to take out of his budget, and that would basically be the NFPA standard requires a quarterly air test. Basically, they run the air test, they send it out, they make sure that everything's safe. I'm sure I'm probably telling you things that you already know, but I'm not sure that Councilors Solms or Ingalls know these. So John's fully prepared to take that out, and I think it only costs us about between $500 and $1,000 a year out of our operating expenses at Gales Ferry to make sure that this breathing air is of good quality. Because obviously, anytime we're going to put it in a cylinder and have our firefighters breathe through it, we have to make sure it meets certain cleanliness and health standards to make sure they're safe as well.
That sounds about right.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Good questions. Anything else? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Councilor Ingalls votes aye.
Councilor Malone votes aye.
Councilor Solms votes aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much. And we have no other business, so I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you all for attending. We'll see you soon.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night. Bye.